morning we're all like, it's Honor Symposium Day!
This DVD is a glimpse at the University of Dayton's Honors and John W. Barry Sr. Scholars Program's Honors Student Symposium. The symposium is an opportunity for senior honors and scholars students to present their thesis research in a professional setting. You will see excerpts of 7 of this year's 52 senior presentations, featuring students from all 4 units: Arts and Sciences, Business, Engineering, and Education. Each of the seniors works closely with one or more thesis advisors on their year-long research study.
To the consultations that are corporate.
My name is Jen. We want to see jobs created from our investors. So if you're entering into
So we're talking about something about this size. This is actually 2 of them stacked together.
The objectives of my research were to find out, first, I hypothesized that aquaporin 1 and aquaporin 4 expression are going to be altered throughout the progression of Alzheimer's disease in this model. What does this kind of look like in the lab? Well, I had the mouse brain slices that I was using were very thin. They were 50 microns. So I had to think of a way to manipulate them without actually breaking them. So I created these dippers from materials that I could find in the lab. Then I used a paintbrush in order to float the brain slices into these dippers. And the first couple steps of immunohistochemistry are just washes and blocking steps, so I could use kind of a larger chamber. But then once I put in the primary antibody, I had to keep the slices in separate chambers because you don't want cross-contaminations between antibodies. So where did I look in the mouse brain in order to see changes in expression? I looked in the lateral ventricle because, and for this figure, the red is where I looked for the aquaporin 1 and aquaporin 4. So I have a couple acknowledgments. I'd like to thank Dr. Crane for helping me out with this entire process, and also the Honors and Barry Scholar Program funded me. And I also received funding from the American Physiological Society. They gave me a summer undergraduate research fellowship, and through that I'll be presenting this in San Diego this spring.
My presentation today is on the investment potential for ceramic matrix composites for jet engine manufacturers. Let's give you a little background on this topic. As a mechanical engineering student, I have done 3 co-ops at GE Aviation, and while down there I became interested in economic policy. The first most important thing to do is quantify the costs involved with rising fuel costs and the caps on emissions, in particular carbon dioxide emissions. After there's been a quantification of the actual detriment to the aviation industry, we can look at how will lightweight materials help to offset these costs. Looking at this chart, you can see 11 different aircrafts, the gallons of fuel used per hour compared to their max takeoff weight, and you see that there is a direct correlation here. By taking off 30% in just the engine, such a small part of the plane total weight-wise, if we can take that out, we can save $500 million over a 10-year period, just in one single airline.
Hi, I'm Jane Kaufman, and I'm going to give you a presentation today on a case study of the Institute for Development and Commercialization of Advanced Sensor Technology. And what that is, besides a mouthful, is basically a project funded by the state to create jobs in Ohio. We have $8 million that we use as venture capital funds, and I'm going to basically break down a little bit for you the difference between how we use our funds and how the 2 traditional sources for private funding for entrepreneurs, which are venture capitalists and business angels, the metrics that they use to decide how to invest and what they expect from their investments. So first of all, I'll kind of give you an overview of where we're going to go today. Basically, as you see on the left and the right, we have venture capitalists and business angels. Venture capitalists are usually, it's a pool of resources that are run by a firm or a group, and it's run as a business, and basically they use this big pool of money to invest in potential startups or product development, and they expect a return on their investment to help sustain their pool of money. Business angels, on the other hand, are usually wealthy individuals who are using their personal income that they've made over the course of their career to invest in potential business opportunities. Okay, thanks a lot for coming, guys.
Melanoma is, as everyone probably knows, a serious form of skin cancer that affects, as you can see, 48,000 people die from it every year. But it can be treated if it's detected early. Now, there are several options currently to treat melanoma. You can have surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, sort of the standard cancer treatments. And a newer one is photodynamic therapy, specifically using the agent photofrin, which is the only currently FDA-approved agent. And let me talk about that a little bit. So PDT, photodynamic therapy, is a type of treatment for cancer or other skin disorders, macular degeneration, things like this, where you would want to kill particular cells. And it uses photosensitizers and light to induce damage. There's very little toxicity shown. But by day 7, if you compare the control that's untreated with the porphyrin to the concentrations that are treated with the porphyrin, you see that this sort of circular shape coming. What that is the apoptosis occurring that we're looking for.
My name is Janet D'Souza Dinnan, and my honors thesis advisor is Dr. Rachel Colopy. For my research, I investigated teacher feedback on student writing. Now you may ask yourselves, why is this important? Why did I choose this? Well, when comparing the United States with other countries in the world, we see that the US is lagging behind in terms of student achievement. But even looking within our nation, we see that writing is an increasingly required skill in many career fields. Now, research has been conducted on feedback that raises student achievement. So there's certain types of feedback that can raise student writing achievement. First, you have improvement-oriented feedback. This is feedback that kind of guides a student to improve their writing. Improvement-oriented feedback is more effective than positive or negative evaluative feedback, being more of that corrective feedback, whether it's right or it's wrong. I talk about the approach of feedback, but I also looked at the content of feedback. The first 6 traits you see here, ideas, sentence fluency, voice, organization, word choice, and conventions, I identified through my literature review. I found that these 6 traits are common traits found in good writing.
I'll be presenting on quasi-one-dimensional materials for thermoelectrics. It's a big name, it sounds impressive. It's really actually simple on a fundamental level. So we're talking about something about this size. This is actually 2 of them stacked together, and this came out of a cooling module. So what they are, they're solid-state heat engines. It means that they work with semiconductors, that moving parts. They convert heat directly into electricity, or they can be used to move heat with an electric current. That means they can either be used for heating or for cooling. And they operate based on an effect called the Seebeck effect, which we won't go into in detail. These devices are governed by this simple equation. You get a figure of merit Z, which is just a kind of easy way to compare different materials. You've got the Seebeck coefficient, which is measured in microvolts per Kelvin. What that says is basically how mobile electronic charges in the material are based on the temperature. As you can see, it's a squared term, so it's fairly important. The Seebeck coefficient, there isn't a whole lot of demand for it, and the systems to do it are very expensive. And so I actually wound up making my own system to measure the sample.
For my study, I looked at international non-governmental organizations and their relationships with local Nicaraguan groups of civil society. My research question was, how do the north-south power dynamic, dependency, and local capacity affect the relationships between INGOs and local civil society groups in Nicaragua? So to go about answering my research question, I engaged in a review of scholarly articles. I went to Nicaragua for 3.5 months, where I was able to conduct interviews with international and local staffs of 7 international NGOs and 6 Nicaraguan NGOs. And I was also able to go into the field and observe some of the programs that are executed jointly by both the international and the local organizations. And the brigadistas are local community leaders, and then from the community leaders, it is channeled through to the Tomabu community as a whole. And the side arrows signify that CRS has oversight of this flow of aid all the way to the community level, which is one of the reasons that this relationship in particular is so successful.